Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Building Trust, Leadership Lessons from the Ground Up. My name is Jesse Warner, and I'll be your host today. Before we begin, I'd like to just share a few tips to ensure the smooth and engaging experience for everyone. So please keep your microphone muted when not speaking. This helps us minimize background noise and avoid unintentional interruptions. While we encourage you to keep your video on to foster a more interactive environment, feel free to turn it off if you need to step away briefly or if you're more comfortable having it off. Feel free to use the chat function to ask questions or to share comments. We'll have a designated Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but you can post your questions as they arise, and then we'll address them at the appropriate time. If you wish to speak or ask a question verbally, please use the raise the hand feature. This will help us manage the flow of conversation and ensure everyone gets a chance to contribute. Please be respectful in your interactions. We do strive for a professional and supportive environment where all viewpoints are valued. As a note, this session is also being recorded for future use and reference, and by participating, you consent to be recorded. I do see a question here from Alejandro. If you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, we were all logged into the another one we got from Andy earlier. So you might have the rest of the crew coming in here in the next few minutes.
Okay, so yeah, they can join as they get there. Thanks for the heads up on that.
Yep.
Okay, so with all of that out of the way, it is my privilege to introduce Tim Maxwell, Vice President of Bunney's Incorporated, an industrial construction company based in Arizona. Tim and his wife, Andy, who co-own the company, have successfully doubled the company's revenue and impact, demonstrating their ability to lead and scale the business effectively. Born in Colorado, raised in Arizona, Tim has served in both the Marine Corps and the Air Force Reserves, bringing a disciplined and leadership-oriented approach to his work. Tim emphasizes the importance of stepping back to allow growth, focusing on strategic leadership rather than getting bogged down in day-to-day operations. His approach involves making key hires to delegate responsibilities effectively, allowing him to spend more time on strategic aspects of the business. With that said, I'm excited to turn the time over to Tim. So Tim, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for being here. Like Jesse said, I've been around here for a minute. I think I am going on like my 32nd year of trades, construction, but leadership has probably been closer to 25 to 27 years. Building trust and how important it is in our lives, organizations, marriages, families, so on and so forth. It's truly the biggest piece of this structure that actually holds everything up. When we don't have trust or we lose trust, things start tending to fall apart on us, and it goes a way that we didn't plan on it. With that being said, again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you spending your time with me, and my hopes is that at the end of this, you take something away, you take some nuggets of information away that will help you with your teams, your families, your peers, your men and women of trust that will help move you forward as you go on your journey. These core elements of trust are 5 of many, but these 5 I resonate with plenty. Integrity, vulnerability, consistency, transparency, and empathy. I feel like when you have these, you're truly being authentic. And authenticity, which is what this makes up for me, is a true testament to whether somebody's going to trust you or not. Because if you can't be transparent through these core elements, then you may have a problem. But we'll go through these 5 things. As we go through, please use as Jesse said, use the raise hand question. The more interactive this is, the more fun it is. And I really like to hear what's on your mind. So please interact as you see fit. So here we go. Integrity. How important is integrity in your business or in your relationship or your friendships or your job sites? How is it work inside your teams? How important is integrity in your teams? Um, for myself, integrity is being able to do the right thing when nobody's looking, but it's being able to do the right thing constantly. Even when it's hard, you know, when you gotta eat crow and fess up to not being correct or not doing the right thing, you know, that still shows up as integrity. And when we don't um display that, people tend not to trust who we are, because eventually they find out that you're either lying, holding back, not a man of your word or a woman of your word, or a significant other of the word you truly said you are. Or, how many of us had things happen to us in our life where, hey, did you guys eat all the cookies in the cupboard? Oh no, it wasn't me. And there's 5 of you saying no, it wasn't me, but reality of it was somebody did. So over time, when you keep answering the question with no, you're chipping away at your integrity, you're losing integrity. So what does it look like in the workforce? How does it look like as you as a leader, right? And how do you get people to follow you or trust you when you're lacking integrity? And what does it look like when you do have integrity? Are you setting the stage for the next group of people that says, hey, it's okay, you can have integrity and lead people and admit you're wrong? And will they want to follow you even more, knowing that you are a human being, right? You do make mistakes and there are going to be challenges. So having integrity and living in integrity is a huge piece, in my opinion, for moving forward, moving groups forward, standing in your word. When people follow you and you tend to stand in your word, especially when it's in defense of your folks tend to trust you more. When you lose integrity, you tend to burn your people at the stake, and people absolutely choose not to follow you anymore or trust you. So you start losing trust. Where would it show up? I've had conversations with leaders in the field where I've been tore down in front of people. So their integrity was lost at that point in time. Theirs, not mine. But the people around saw what was happening. So that person that wanted to tear me down in front of everybody, yeah, their integrity was lost with the people that watched it. So just something to think about as you go forward. How does your integrity work? How does your integrity lie? Are you good with admitting to what you've done or not done? And how are you leading with honesty? So, any questions about integrity before we move on? Okay. Switching into vulnerability, you'll see that as we go, all of these kind of lend to each other, but it's a habit, it's a who you are as a human being, how you show up every day for people. It lends to, do you care? Are you vulnerable? Are you willing to tell people, hey man, I'm having a really hard day today. I'm going through some stuff and I need some help. I'm not that strong today. Are you capable of doing that? Are you capable of telling people, hey, I don't have the answer. I have to go get with somebody else to get the answer. Are you good with that? Or are you scared of being judged by people because you may be looked at as lack of capability? Maybe people will lose confidence in you if you show vulnerability. Are you willing to be open? Are you willing to let people see all your scars and your damage? Are you okay with that? And if you're not, it's completely up to you whether you are or not. But I'm going to tend to trust people that are a little more vulnerable than those that are guarded, because the guarding is for you, it's not them. They're getting a made up version of you. They're not getting the whole version. So being vulnerable is definitely not a safe place for a lot of us. A lot of us in leadership are A players. We're decision makers. We're A players. We don't want to be looked at. We don't want to be judged in a negative connotation. We want to be judged in a good light. We want to be carried forward, not backward. And the reality of it is that you're not going to be judged, but the people that are judging you in a negative light or a negative connotation ain't people that are trying to play at your level anyway. They're people that are not playing in the same ball field you are. You're a professional and you're trying to be better. They may say they're a professional, but are they truly trying to be better if they're tearing somebody else down? So vulnerability is a big one, and I've had to learn that myself over the last probably 5 or 10 years, that being vulnerable is going to get me a lot farther than being in a safe, secure atmosphere of not letting you know who I am. So when you become vulnerable with your people, it just allows them to know that you're a human and you make mistakes, and no, you don't need to judge me, but I'll take your feedback, right? So feedback is a tool that's given to you to help you become better, but you have to become vulnerable to get that feedback, because most times all it sounds like is judgment. It doesn't sound like feedback. Any questions in regards to that? A little bit more here, and things that make us be less vulnerable, maybe controlling situations. I refer to it as mask. How many masks do you have on that you're not allowing people, you're not allowing yourself to be vulnerable? And a mask can look like a control freak. It can look like a martyr. It can look like a introvert. It can look like a people pleaser. It can look like any of that along those lines. But man, when you truly start removing those masks, you become vulnerable, and people get to see who you authentically are, how much you truly care. Not the made up version. Not the guy that shows up every day. He's got everything together. Every single day is perfect. Happy-go-lucky. All this stuff is like, I don't know if I tend to trust that guy, because we all have problems. And how we work through those problems is what tells somebody whether we're having a real life or not. So be vulnerable. Be vulnerable with your folks. Let them in. It's not typical to the construction world, but I'm telling you, for the leadership in this, for the leaders in this conference or in this webinar, I appreciate y'all being here. When you don't let people in, and people aren't letting you in, you're not building trust. You're building a relationship that's going to take a long time to find trust. But when you start setting the ground rules of being vulnerable, letting them see you, then it lends to them getting curious, and they start becoming vulnerable as well. They let you in. Now you get an opportunity to become trustworthy with that data. And that's where a lot of us jumped off the vulnerability train years ago, because we trusted somebody and they took that information, turned it around, stabbed us in the back with it. And therefore now we don't trust anybody. Well, that was one person. That was a circumstance, not a life sentence, right? Maybe we could do a little bit different moving forward to allow people to see us vulnerably. We don't have to pour our guts out on a table, but we can definitely start a relationship of trust, because trust takes time. It takes time to build. It takes a It takes a forked tongue or a wicked tongue to remove it. So what are we doing to build trust through vulnerability? Any questions on vulnerability up to this point? All right. Again, appreciate y'all being here. You're amazing. Dustin. Dustin's got a question.
Actually, it's David.
Oh, you guys got to cut some microphones out or something.
We're doing that. Not a question, but just to, agree with what you say. Myself, with my team specifically, I mean, it changes the dynamic of the team being vulnerable. And I can even say that for at home, with my roommate, our being vulnerable, even with him, it's changed the dynamic at home, for the better. So I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't just apply to work. It applies to our everyday life. It becomes a habit that you have to work on. It's not just something that pops up. It's once you create the habit of being vulnerable, it's easier for other people to become curious or to feel safe or secure or whatever about becoming vulnerable as well. There's a lot of things that we were raised with, the stigmas of, man, how many times have you heard real men don't cry, or you can't cry because you're weak if you cry, and all these things, right? And you're going to play sports and you're going to be a football player and football players don't cry and all this. And it's like, well, crying is not the actual word that goes with vulnerability. Crying is not a strength or weakness thing. It's an authenticity thing. Are you authentic? Are you allowing yourself to be authentic, allowing people to see the real you? And if you're not, why not? And get to terms with that belief system that may be true or may be false, but it's a belief. And did you make it up in your head? Did you make it up on your own? Or is there things that support that? And if you do have a bad belief, turn it into a new belief, turn it into a good belief, and find things that support that. Right? Oh, I'm weak if I cry. Who said so? Oh, my dad's brother's cousin. Well, who is he? Right? It's like, I don't need to impress that guy. I need to impress me and God. That's it. And if I make some friends along the way, that's really cool too. If I can help somebody get from negative to positive, that's super cool. So thank you for the input, Mr. Gabaldon. Moving on to the next slide of consistency and trust. Just anybody that wants to share, why would consistency matter in a world of trust in construction, your life, your marriage, your kids, your anything? Why would consistency matter? Anybody? All right. Well,
Need structure,
say it again, Jeremy.
structure,
Structure,
reliability,
accountability, yeah,
reliability.
reliability. Heck yeah. Heck
It
yeah.
can, it can also set, like when you're consistent, people know what to expect. The expectations are set.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, to me,
They have a clear path.
have a clear path. Absolutely.
It keeps you accountable.
Accountability. Yes, sir. Yet when we're inconsistent, if you look at the closest relationship you have to you, whether it's your kid, your wife, your partner, your friend, whatever the case may be, and you get inconsistent about how you act, talk, lead, communicate, eat, your patterns going to bed, whatever the case may be, when you become inconsistent, things, actions, people, attitudes, everything follows right along suit. So the inconsistencies show themselves tenfold when you become inconsistent. How does it look in leadership? Is imagine there is a train of 10 people behind you. They're spaced about 2 feet apart, and you take off walking. And you're walking down this 10-foot wide sidewalk, and all of a sudden you start believing that there's stuff on the sidewalk, so you start swerving back and forth. And then every now and then you stop and you take off again, and then you start swerving, and then you stop, and you keep going through this pattern. This is what inconsistency looks like to a team that's trying to follow you. So at what point in time are they going to trust that you're just going to line out and start moving? When you have displayed to them, I'm going to be inconsistent. I'm going to swerve back and forth. I'm going to stop. I'm going to back up. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to swerve. I'm going to just keep doing these things to throw you off. So how do you lead them consistently when you can't be consistent? They can't figure out where they're going because you don't have a consistent pattern to what you're doing. So when you lead them inconsistently, let's just say start time's a good one for a lot of us in construction. So when it gets hot out, our start times move to 5 or 5:30 in the morning. Some of them are 4 in the morning. And we know that in construction. But if we did that during the winter, would that be inconsistent with how we do work in construction? Sure. So we said, no, we're going to start at 4:30 in the morning in the winter, and we're going to start at 7 in the morning during the summer. Well, now people are like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? Well, people won't trust you. They won't pick up on the fact that, no, we're just doing it differently because that's the hours of business at this place. They look at it as, why are we changing the consistencies again? What's different? So what our job as leaders is to be as consistent as possible. It's to give them the formula that's going to give them the deliverable every single time. In the unions, we go through the apprenticeship programs because we teach the exact same thing to the exact same people over and over and over because we know it works. My example was McDonald's. Everybody goes to McDonald's, or for the most part, everybody goes to McDonald's because it smells the same, it tastes the same, it looks the same, and it's predominantly the same cost, no matter where you go in the United States. So when you find consistency, it's easier to lead. People aren't trying to figure out what you're trying to figure out. You're the head on the horse. If you can't figure it out, they ain't going to figure it out either. And eventually they will leave you and go find consistency. Is there change? Sure, there's going to be change. But are we to communicate the change before the change happens or after the change happens? Right. It's the before. Everybody's online, everybody's in line, there's complete alignment. We all got the same story. We all understand where we're going, what we're doing before there's a change. You know, in some places that we've worked, and there's a few people on this call that's worked at that facility, change was, it seemed like every day there was change. We could go from job to job and there was change, significant change, not like, oh, well, we're going to change 30 minutes. No, significant change. You don't trust change. You don't trust when people are doing that because it's a shock effect. Not just to you, but to all the people that are working with and for you. They're like, my God, are we going to stop with this? We're creatures of habit. It's easiest to lead when you're consistent. Actions, decisions, and performance create a predictable environment. And they can trust that there's going to be this thing that comes out of it. And they can thrive. They can really boil that thing down. One thing I learned, not only playing football, but playing in my trade, was I learned how to take time off. If I knew the consistency of it, I could actually do that task, but I would perfect that trade to where I could take 2 seconds off or 2 minutes off or 1 minute off. And 2 minutes off in a week, man, I just started building time. Now it became valuable. And that's the same thing that your people are looking for, is when you're inconsistent, you're losing time. When they're having to go 55 different places on 4 different days, it's ridiculous. They're not gaining time. You're losing money. You're losing. But when you make it consistent, they go to this one place all the time, do this thing, they learn how to shave time off. And that's when you start picking up momentum. You start picking up time. You start picking up money. Your profits start increasing, so on and so forth. But you have to be the consistent one. And you don't make changes unless everybody's in line with that change. So, any questions or comments about consistency and how it plays a role in whether people trust you in your organization? You guys are amazing. So, the happy one, the one about empathy. A lot of folks, what I wrote was, people respond better when they know that you care about them. The saying in the whole wide world is, I don't care what you know until I know you care about me. That's empathy. That's a care button, right? And in blue collar, in our world, this ain't normally the one we go play with. That's feelings. When we start touching on feelings and all this stuff, that's not really, it's not like what we don't like doing that, for a lack of better words, because we don't know how to deal with feelings. Creates a connection between individuals that is rooted in understanding, respect, and mutual support. Does anybody know the difference between empathy and sympathy? Anybody want to take a shot at it? Dustin? You're muted.
Yeah, so I think empathy is knowing what someone's going through and willing to kind of sit with them and go through that with them as well. Sympathy is more like, hey, I know you're going through something. Sorry about that. But empathy is like caring and sitting with them while they're going through it, showing you care.
Absolutely. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. I care about you. I care about you enough to sit here while you go through the pain you're in. Does that drive trust? Does it drive trust in people, that people are like, man, this guy really cares about me? Yeah, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. If I know you care about me at that level, I'm probably going to trust you with a heck of a lot. Not just my livelihood, but to lead me into places that I've probably never been to before. When you actively listen to people, when you actively care about people, you truly understand them as a human being, right? So you know when they're having a good day, a bad day, a okay day. You're involved in their families. You're involved in their, I don't mean involved like you're going and hanging out and all that, but you know they got kids and a dog and a rat or a snake or whatever it is. But you're truly empathetic to what people need and how they're showing up to work. I've been in trades over 30 years. I totally understand. Before that was the Marine Corps. If you ever want a definition of nobody cares about your feelings, go join the Marine Corps. They will make it very clear they don't care about your feelings. But the whole point is, man, you sure would have probably helped me out later on in life had somebody cared about what was happening to me in my life. I've had a couple of life instances, life changing moments, right? And as most of you are aware of them, that, yeah, I never understood empathy. I didn't understand how it played. I didn't understand how it landed until something happened to me. I had a really good friend that the year that my son had passed, I got a really good friend that right before my son passed, his son passed. And when his son passed, I was like, hey man, I'm here for you. You ever need anything, let me know. I'm here for you. But after it happened to me, then I went back and I was like, hey man, I didn't do that right. I didn't do that right at all. I'm here for you, brother. I'm here to sit with you. I'm here to rock through this with you. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. So the whole idea behind sympathy and empathy is exactly what you said, Dustin, of, hey man, that really sucks. But the empathy was, no, I went through it, not at the level he did, but I definitely went through it to understand it. Why is it important? Because I know that guy, but do I need to go through that type of hell to have empathy for somebody? No, I don't need to go through that. I just need to realize that things happen. Things happen that in our control, out of our control, things that we could do, can't do. For the most part, it's unexplainable. But at the same time, it creates trust because I truly know what you're going through and I know who you are. And if this thing wouldn't have happened, you probably wouldn't have acted that way. And that's pure trust. That's truly saying, no, I trust this guy with everything. He's going through a hard time. So how are you building trust with your team, and how is your team building trust with you? And that's why we picked these 5 subjects. Why I picked these 5 topics. Because if you're not going to be vulnerable, how in the hell can you possibly be empathetic? If you're not going to be real with people, how can you truly build trust? Because if you don't be real, if you're not empathetic, you're not authentic, you're not doing these things, then somebody is building a relationship with a shell of a person. Not the true, real identity, the real identity of a person. So what happens when it all changes? Or is that where we're supposed to show up with grace and mercy and all that and be like, man, I really, or do we just go, you know what? I'm having a tough day today. Roxy, I need you to lean in today because I'm having a tough one. It's okay to say that. It's okay to be that. I've been a hard fella. There's plenty of people on this phone, this webinar that know me for the last 15, 18 years. I'm not the guy I was, but I do know to get where I want to be, to where people trust me and they love me and care about me, I have to go through these things. And these touchy-feely things doesn't normally lend to blue-collar construction. But I'm telling you, if you want to make a change in the world, you want to be different, you want to see change, you want better, stick around. We got a lot more to talk about. Maybe not in this webinar, but in webinars to come. But I do know that it's tough when people don't trust you. They don't trust what you're doing. They don't trust how you're leading. They don't trust how you're showing up. They don't trust the words coming out of your mouth. They don't trust the company. They trust they're going to get a check at the end of the week and that's it. What are you doing to build that rapport with those people, to build trust? The biggest building block of them all. What are you currently doing to build it? Any questions on empathy? Transparency. So that's one of my fun ones. This was the tough one, but you have to become transparent. Transparency is when I get to see the real you, and you get to see the real me. They get to see the real you. What does it look like for people to get to see the real raw, right? A lot of times in my past, I became very transparent when I was attached to alcohol. I mean, I can get real transparent real quick. And there's a few people on this webinar that are grinning right now. But the reality of it is that, yeah, we can get transparent, but when we're not in our authentic self, how transparent are we? Like when we leave the bar, we leave the party, or we leave whatever, and the next day, how transparent are we? When we walk onto the job site, well, are we being real? Are we the guy that we was with the alcohol, or are we a different guy now? You know, how is that showing up? Because people can read you. You think you got it all under wraps, and you think it's all under control, and I got everything, and people can't see, and all this. People can read you like a book. There's no sense in not being transparent, because they're looking at you and going, there's no way. I will not follow you. I don't care what you say. I'm not following you. I will do it because I need a paycheck. But you are not real. How many times have you got off work, went home, and said, that guy is a real piece of, figure out the word for yourself. Right? Because he's doing something that's different than what you're seeing. Right? Or that guy's really a suck up. Or that guy, yeah. People can read you. People can see what's not you, but you get the idea. People can see what's going on and how you're showing up. Some people say, well, you fake it till you make it. Well, people can read that too. People can read whether you're being a fake or not. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to fake it to make it. But for the most part, people know whether you're being empathetic, transparent, real, caring, loving, so on and so forth. They don't need somebody to walk out and be like, yeah, that guy's a real, yeah, I know. How many times have you heard that? Somebody walked up and was like, hey, you know this guy David over here, he's a real prize, and your reaction is, yeah, I know. I've been around him enough, I know. So are you that person? Are you showing up with a true transparency of who you are, of being able to say, you know what, I don't have the answer, I'm going to go get the answer? Or you just give them an answer and then it goes to crap, and then later on everybody's getting tore down for whatever reason, and then everybody's looking at you and you're like, well, I just did the best that I could. How transparent are you? I can't trust fake. All of you are great leaders in your companies. All of you are great human beings. You know people. You know you can look at people and be like, that person is phony. But what if they were transparent? What if they were truly transparent? What if you were truly transparent? Would you trust them? Do you want people to trust you? Let them have the real you. Let them have the whole you. You're not going to fit everybody. Everybody's not going to fit you. You're going to do your absolute best. But just be real. Be transparent. If you're gonna cry, cry. If you're gonna jump up and down, jump up and down. Do whatever it is you need to do, but be real and be transparent. And the right people will accept you. I promise you. You will be surrounded with more of the right people than you've ever been in your whole life. But when you got to put on this show, and it's not the real you, and it's not the who you want to be, you're going to be surrounded with more of the wrong people than you can possibly imagine in your life. And they're not going to be trustworthy people. They're going to be people that say, yep, I like that guy. But that ain't the guy you are. So you're being honest, are you being real, or you're being transparent? Being transparent about not only yourself, but the goals, challenges, and decisions, right? So are you being transparent about your goals? Where you want to be, how you want to get there, what do you want to do? When you say, well, I want to be there's a person on here who says they want to be a project manager in 3 years. Okay. Well, thank you for telling me what can I do to help you? Because I truly care about you. I want you to trust that I'm going to help you with that goal. But I'm going to trust that you're going to go do that work too. So how are you showing up with transparency? Challenges, right? How are you showing up with your challenges? Like I said, I know Roxy very well. But I can go to Roxy and say, you know, I'm having a really hard time with reaching out to people. I'm having a hard time with getting out of my shell, right? And going and reaching out and shaking hands with people. I have a hard time with that, Roxy. Can I do that with everybody? Well, not before. I could do it with her before because I trusted her, but I couldn't do it with everybody because I didn't trust everybody. Can I do it now? Sure, I'm way more confident now. I feel way better about what I do now. But I had to get rid of those masks that we talked about earlier to be confident. Because sometimes confidence gets confused with cocky and so on and so forth. And it ends up costing us later. But the whole idea of being transparent with goals, challenges, decisions, getting other people to help you, showing weakness, right? Showing what we referred to as weakness in a part of our life where people said, well, if you ask questions, we're going to replace you. If you ask questions, you're not qualified for that position. If you have questions, it's like, well, that's fine, but you're probably working in a place that you probably shouldn't be working if that's what they're doing to you. And that's just my own opinion. But yeah, they shouldn't be stomping on people that are asking questions to grow, because that's transparency. I don't know, and I really want the answer. I want to do it right. Well, I'm going to trust people that are going to ask questions. Okay. So any questions about the transparency slide?
For you. Oh, sorry.
What's up?
So in a leadership position, I've been an employee and a leader, different places, particularly talking about goals or challenges with the company. You know, I've been part of a company where, you know, one day leadership says, hey, everything is great. And then Friday there are layoffs, right? You know, how do you kind of balance the transparency with sensitive information? Because as a leader, you also know, like, hey, if I'm transparent about this, I could have a lot of other problems beforehand as well. And so sometimes you do have to keep some sensitive information. What's kind of your balance from transparency versus and still keep trust while I don't know. You understand my question?
Sure. No, and we work with a lot of people, unions primarily. So unions, the union craftsmen, they understand their trade. But to your point, more of the people that work for us full time, how we're doing that. what we're moving to is no quarterly, monthly. We're sitting down and talking monthly. So if David is my direct report, David has a list of expectations in front of him. It's clear what I expect from him. And if every week or every month I'm sitting down with him on one-on-ones and helping him understand where he is meeting or exceeding that expectation, I'm being transparent, especially if he's missing it. So it's not a surprise. It's a communication of, no, you keep missing the part. You keep missing the mark. You keep missing. And they know that per the policies, that the policy says on the second time, we're going to start writing this up. On the third time, you're going to take time off. And on the fourth time, we're probably going to move off. But we're very clear up front about the expectation. So it's not me being not transparent. It's me being very transparent about the expectation and how am I tracking that? Do we understand it? Is it mutually agreed upon? And we both executed the same signature. Does that help you, Jess?
Yeah, I was just wondering more related to the sensitive information, but I think what you're saying is really there should never be a surprise like that because you should have been having conversations that were leading up to that saying, hey, we're missing our goals. We
That's
might
right.
not meet our revenue targets. There's
That's right.
consequences to that, those kinds of conversations.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, there's not an opportunity to not be transparent. You know, I mean, it's sensitive, but it should be sensitive enough that you are like completely open about everything so that, oh, well, you're not hitting your mark, but you're keeping all those conversations to yourself. And then you get to the step off point and it's like, you know what, you're getting laid off Friday, dude. I'm done with this. Well, now he hasn't had the opportunity to learn anything. And you didn't put any checks and balances in place to keep him on the path or to help him understand you're going away, dude, if you don't execute this stuff. So when we say the sensitive part, it's only, in my opinion, it's only sensitive because you're not sharing it. If I made it clear, you know, in an agreement with, I'll keep picking on Roxy. If I made it clear that, hey, Roxy, this is what I expect from you month after month, and this is how much revenue I expect you to bring in, and this is how much I want to see in growth by the end of the year from this position, and she agrees to it. Every month, I'm going to have a conversation with Roxy about, man, you're smoking it, or hey, you're missing. Is there something I can do to support you? And she already knows from the policy that I'm not going to do this 4 or 5 times. It's clear, you know, so sometimes the transparency comes from, we don't want to have hard conversations, but the hard conversations come because we didn't do the work in the front end of making stuff clear. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully that helps with that help you, Jess?
Yeah, that was good. I think there was another question as well.
Okay. Somebody else have a question?
Maybe not. I know they started talking at the same time I did, so
Okay.
but it's okay.
That's all right. We're gonna have time here in just a minute. So anyways, that's my slide on transparency. That's my thoughts on transparency. Of course, like I've said numerous times, you know, this ain't all of it. This is just some of it. But you'll definitely become more trustworthy when you are transparent, when you lay out all the game rules before you start the launch. Everybody understood the rules. You're staying consistent. You're staying empathetic to what they're going through. You're understanding how it all works together. You're hang on just a second. The vulnerability piece, allowing them to be vulnerable, you being vulnerable, living in integrity, right? Living in what you said, what you wrote down, what you both agreed to, kind of like your contract, if you will. Right? When you live in that, you will have trust. You will have more trust than you can imagine. It's going to take a minute because you got a lot of drama behind you, and that's something that one of my sayings is you can't talk your way out of what you habited yourself into. So it's okay, you got to create a new habit, because all the talking in the world ain't gonna fix it. So you got to create a new habit. Dustin.
I look at it as transparency is kind of like what you said. You know, anyone could go work wherever they want right now. There's lots of jobs, especially in construction. You know, when we hire people for outage time, we call them out and they're currently working. You know, we're telling them, hey, we have a project. You can come make a lot of money real quick, but it's only going to last 3 to 4 weeks, you know, and just let them know up front, hey, this is as long as it's going to last. If it lasts a little bit longer, cool. But, you know, it's just doing right by the people is why we keep getting people that are able to come back, because we're being transparent with them on the whole project. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big deal because it's clear. They know, we know how long we can have that outstanding help or those amount of people. It helps us communicate clear with the customer that we work with and for. So it's very clear. It's up front. There's nothing to hide, right? So the more clear, transparent we are, the better the program's going to be. When you hire in somewhere, you don't want to hire in with the idea you're going to make 50 grand in 4 weeks just by selling plungers. It's like, no, I want you to sell plungers, and then you hire on, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, we need you to sell the 35 toilets that go with it. And it's like, well, that wasn't clear. So now right out the gate, you've lost trust. So building trust on the job site, establish clear expectations and protocols. It's a must, right? It's a must, because people they're gonna constantly be failing if it's not clear. This communication, of course, well, next one, promote a culture of open communication. How many of you went to ask the boss a question and he's like, I don't want to hear it. I've told you it already. Get out of my face. It's kind of rhetorical, because we've all experienced something very similar throughout our entire life. The reality of it is if you think that every time you open your mouth, you are speaking clearly, you're wrong. Somebody did not hear you the way you said it. They heard it completely differently. If you want a true look at who you have working with and for you as leaders and how they hear things, I strongly encourage you to do some type of personality assessment. The DISC, DISC, is a great one. You get turn around pretty quick. It's $100 and something bucks per test. And it's like right away, you know exactly how they need to hear information and why it needs to look that way. And then you realize that the way you've been talking, one size don't fit all. I'll just put it that way. We did that here in our recent month, and it was very eye-opening as to why and how. So promote a culture of open communication. Don't believe that your way of talking, listening, communicating, writing, whatever it is the only way, because somebody needs to ask a question. And that question can either lead you astray or lead you to perfection. But you get to make that choice. You get to hear that. The more you let them ask questions, the more you understand that they're truly curious and they want to learn. Lead by example. If you want people to just shut other people down, shut them down, right? You want to build trust? What are you doing to be trustworthy? How do people trust you? Remember the 4 principles that we talked about? There was actually 5. So I do appreciate you all um, being on this call. Conflict resolution, all these things lend to trust. When you work together to find a solution, you get buy-in from the people that are working with you. The buy-in says, I care. It goes back to the 5 things that we talked about. It's the empathy and the vulnerability thing, and you're allowing people into your world and you're being allowed into theirs. You're getting to see where their brains truly are. Acknowledge and listen to the people because they all got something to say, and everybody's is just as important as the next guy. But when you do that, you start building trust. They trust that you're going to hear them out, and that when they have something to say, you're not just going to shut them down, that you're going to listen and not judge, but maybe give them feedback that will help them grow. Feedback is from a trusted source. Judgment is from an untrusted source, just so we're all on the same page. We have reached the Q&A portion. So I had a great leader at one time that said, I don't know what I've said until I hear what you heard. So if you have questions, more than happy to
So we have about 5 minutes left, or 4 minutes, I guess. So we'll be able to take maybe 2 questions. If you do have a question and you want to ask it, go ahead and speak up.
Tim, hey, Alex here. One question is kind of more of a for everyone's personal own experience and different the way they look at it. When you talked about trust, right, building trust with individuals, and I'm asking this, maybe you can share, maybe you can't. As far as rebuilding trust when someone has broken your trust, right? How would you go? What are some of the things that you can say or do, going about it, trying to rebuild a trust with somebody that has broken your trust in the past?
So one of the things that I've had to do in the past was in that I've literally had to take that situation by itself and ask myself, what ownership do I have in this? I had to start with me first before I could even think about understanding where they're coming from. So if I have ownership in that broken trust, I have to acknowledge that. Because they may have broken it because of what I did inside of that. So I have to recognize that first. I have to look inside first before I can possibly look outside. Then if it needs to transfer out, it's like, okay, was it through communication, lack of communication? I have to find the source of the broken trust. What happened for this to happen? The lack of communication, unclear expectations. What was it? What was it that got me where we're at? And then, of course, what can I do different to move forward? If it's with a person, I could say this. And I only say it from my own space of what my faith, and that's if I truly have a challenge with somebody, the Bible's clear and says go to them. And then if they don't listen, it says take counsel with you to talk with them. And then if that don't work, then you bring the church. So it's truly how am I showing up to them? How am I showing up for them? And how do I understand what I got to do better moving forward? Did I have the conversation with them or did I have it with 10 other people? So I look for what I've done that's created it. I look for what caused it. And then what's the action steps moving forward if I want to rebuild it? That answer your question?
Yep, got it. So pretty much analyze yourself first, right? What was your role in it? And then analyze the situation, come up with the conclusion after that.
Yeah, and communicate with them. You know, that's where this empathy part comes in, is if you truly understand them, then you'll understand what happened. It's when we don't understand them, we don't take the time to get to know people, that everything goes south. Because then we start having judgment, right? But I talked about just a second ago, judgment is for people that aren't capable. Judgment's for untrustworthy people. Feedback's for trustworthy. I trust you to give me information that's going to help me be better. Oh, okay, cool.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming to today's webinar. We're at the top of the hour now. Tim, we really appreciate your insights, and I just want to express gratitude to everyone who was on the call today and had questions and participated. We will be sending out a recording of this if there's somebody you know that missed it or think could benefit from it. And we look forward to seeing you again another time. So thank you again, Tim. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you all have a wonderful day.
Man, you guys are amazing. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you again.